What's the hope then?
Oh.
I mean, preach the gospel, right?
Let's not sound hopeless.
Preach the gospel, huh?
I am hopeful. I am hopeful. Listen, and I'm hopeful certainly in ultimate things. But there's some penultimate things that make me hopeful too, right? So again, we're not talking about escapism in this conversation. We're not talking about pie in the sky, by and by. Oh, let's hunker down and let this thing blow over. No, I'm hopeful that we can make a difference in our communities, in our churches, in our families, in our civic institutions, right? And I'm hopeful about the kinds of growth I think I see in the evangelical church beneath all of the problems, right? So I think there's a younger generation of evangelicals, right here at the Legacy Conference, for example, who are robust theologically, who are evangelistic and missional, who take seriously Christian discipleship, and who aren't afraid of these conversations.
Amen.
You know, who aren't afraid of the people that an older generation of evangelicals have made to be boogeymen, right? They're not afraid of our neighbors who are committed to or struggling with same-sex attraction. They're not afraid of that.
Yeah.
They're not afraid of cross-ethnic conversation.
That's right.
They swimming in that, right? And they're not self-conscious about it in a way that older persons are. That's really hopeful. That's a good trajectory. I'm hopeful about the number of young people that I see. I live in Washington, D.C. I'm just seeing them all the time. The number of young Christians who are considering as vocation public service. We need more of that, not less of that. We don't need to retreat from engagement with our institutions. We need to infiltrate them and play a part in them and really bear genuine service. There's a lot to be hopeful for and hopeful about that is even penultimate. And then you start to cast your eye toward Jesus, and you look to the hills from whence cometh your help, and you know your help comes from the Lord, and you know He's coming soon, and you know His kingdom will be a kingdom of perfect righteousness and justice. And so we don't feel dismay. We don't give away. We're crushed, or we're squeezed, but we're not crushed. I mean, we if our eyes are fixed on Christ, then we have a hope that's beyond this world, right? Beyond the reach of our enemies. And a hope that cannot be squashed or taken away, right? But that hope should bleed back into this life and inform how we live in this life as well, right? And so you can say, I think, with real passion, X is wrong, and it ain't right, and you can mourn and lament, and still not be crushed in despair. Right? Because we have a hope and a happiness beyond this life. And so, it is the gospel, but not the gospel shallowly understood.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, I would echo the young people, you know, and that's kind of every generational type of thing where you see young people with a passion that has not gone away. And is there a decline? Sure there is. But at the same time, maybe that's not a bad thing.
That's right.
You know,
Or to sit
maybe
in his church.
maybe it was too easy as American Christians to count yourself as a Christian because you live in a Christian-dominated society. Maybe this is part of the revival of the church that we need, where people say, well, we live in a secular society, and that's the reality of the world that we live in. But now it gives us more of an opportunity to share the gospel rather than less. It gives us more of an opportunity to embody the life of Christ rather than less. So in one sense, the pessimism part of it is the world is fallen and broken. The optimism side is now it allows the church to really be the church, to embody the things that made it the church in the first place, rather than just kind of simply playing along and being the Christendom that we've kind of taken for granted over the years. And I think my concerns, and I'm kind of a pessimist, and is that I do think
But you look like a happy pessimist to me, bro. You're joyful.
Thank you. People don't get that sometimes. The angry prophet is oftentimes the happiest prophet in the scenes. But the hope is that lament is becoming a little bit more part of the narrative. You know, that when there is suffering in the world, we are not going to the quick answers, but we are willing to stay in the pain and to say, yeah, God can be found even in the midst of pain and suffering. And we live in a global world. We live in a changing society. I think diversity is an important part of that, that the dominance of one culture that was also in political and theological and ecclesial and social and cultural control. Now with much more pluralism, we have actually the opportunity to hear each other's voices and to learn from each other. I definitely see that in my kids. My kids their friendships are wide and varied, and they're enriched by that experience. Christian, non-Christian, black, white, Asian, Latino, Native American, they've experienced all of these things before they're 16 years old. And that's a good thing. And so their worldview is a much broader worldview that still has Christ at its root, but is able to see the world maybe from an angle that we aren't able to because of the way we were raised. So I'm excited about that piece of it, and the hope is that that at the end God redeems the church. Now I don't want to sit by passively and say, I'm just going to ask God I'm going to bury my head in the sand while this happens. I want to be a part of something. If God's going to do something, I want to be a part of that.
That's right.
And so if there's a way that we can be a part of God's redeeming work, then I want to be a part of that.